Hi, this is Tara. Welcome to Sky Gazing. Today we're studying Sutra number 45. Let's jump to it. Sūkṣma-viṣayatvaṃ ca-aliṅga-paryavasānam. Sūkṣma, fine, subtle, Vishya, sense object. Sūkṣma-viṣayam means the subtle stages of samadhi. Cha and alinga prakriti, or the unmanifest prakriti. Paryavasanam is the ultimate limit, the outer limit, the extension. Okay. Translation is, and the province of the subtle reaches up to the noumenal. Noumenal is the sort of Kantian opposition of phenomenal, right? Phenomenal is material, noumenal is immaterial, non-dependent. Yeah. So essentially, dependent arising is what he's saying. The odoriferous ether, Gandha Tanmitra, is the subtle object in relation to the atoms of the earthly class, that is Prithvi. The gustiferous, that is Rasa Tanmatra, to the liquid, Apas, atom. The luminiferous ether, that is Rupa Tanmatra, of the fiery, Tejas atom. The tangiferous ether, that is Sparsha Tanmatra, of the gaseous Vayu atom. The soniferous ether, Shabda Tanmatra, of the Akashic atom. Of these, the principle of individuality, Ahankara, is the subtler cause. Subtler than this too is the purely phenomenal objective existence. The principle subtler than this too is the noumenal, Alinga. There is nothing subtler than the noumenal. But it might be said there is Purusha who is also subtler, true, as however subtlety of the noumenal in comparison with the purely phenomenal such as not the subtlety of Purusha. On the other hand, Purusha is not the material cause of the purely phenomenal, it is only the instrumental cause. He's going into Aristotle now. For this reason, the subtlety of the Mula Prakriti is described as not liable to be exceeded. The purely phenomenal is the great principle, the Mahatva, because it is that which immediately passes into latency, into the Mula Prakriti. The noumenal is the Mula Prakriti because it does not pass into latency, Alinga, into any other state. This is what Maharshi Ved Vyasa is saying on his bhashya on this sutra by Patanjali. So, there is a very simple, this is Sri Ramaprasada's translation. There is a simpler sort of categorization of this, which is in the case of the atoms, the element of odor is subtle. So, in case of the earthly material atoms, odor is subtle. Earth is gross, odor is subtle. In case of the atoms of water, the element of taste is subtle. In case of fire, color is subtle. Air, touch is subtle. Space, sound is subtle. Among these, self-consciousness is subtler. Okay, so you've got earth, water, air, fire, space. The subtlety of these gross elements is odor, taste, color, touch, sound. So above these, you've got the consciousness of self is subtler, ahankara. In self-consciousness, buddhi, intelligence, is subtler still. In buddhi, the prime indissoluble is subtler. That is the pradhan. And nothing is subtler than the prime indissoluble. Nothing is subtler than the pradhan, is what he's saying. Now, the objection may arise that, but Purusha is subtle, right? So, how can nothing be subtler than the pradhan, which is the indissoluble prakriti, alinga prakriti? And to that, he himself is raising the objection and providing the answer, which is, yes, it is true, Purusha is subtle. However, the subtlety of the Pradhan, the Alinga Prakriti, is not, and its relation to Purusha is not that of dissoluble to insoluble, indissoluble. It is the self is not, that is the Purusha, is not the material cause of indissoluble Prakriti, Alinga Prakriti, the Pradhan. It is the instrumental cause. The difference between the Aristotelian difference between material and instrumental is material is that which physically gives rise to it. So Purusha doesn't give rise to Prakriti, is what he's saying. It is, it causes it as an effect. Okay. So Purusha doesn't physically give rise to Prakriti. Prakriti becomes an effect through an antecedent thing, is the Aristotelian definition of material cause versus instrumental cause. So what Maharishi Ved Vyasa is saying, the self is not the material cause of dissoluble primary matter, but the instrumental cause. Hence, the subtlety terminates in the primary substance or the pradhan. And I have never been so thankful for Swami Satyananda. But before we go, I just wanted to read, because it's easy to look at these complex but pithy sutras and sort of say, oh wow, was that kind of necessary? Was this kind of complication needed? Couldn't he have kept it simpler? For this, I want to read you what Osho is saying, because I think Osho is completely not, he's just translated the sutra in 3 lines, and then he goes into 4 paragraphs of praising Patanjali. But his praise is so valuable and so necessary. He says, Patanjali, I call him the scientist of the religious world, the mathematician of mysticism, and the logician of the illogical. 2 opposites meet in him. If a scientist reads Patanjali's Yogasutras, he will understand immediately. A Wittgenstein, a logical mind, will feel immediate affinity for Patanjali. He is absolutely logical. And if he leads you towards the illogical, he leads you in such logical steps you never know when he has left the logic and taken you beyond it. He moves like a philosopher, a thinker, and makes so subtle distinctions that the moment he takes you into nirvichara, into no contemplation, you will not be able to watch when the jump has been taken, which is kind of what we're feeling now. He has cut the jump into many small steps. With Patanjali, you will never feel fear because he knows where you will feel fear. He cuts the steps smaller and smaller, almost as if you move on the plain ground. He takes you so slowly that you cannot observe when the jump has happened, when you have crossed the boundary. And he is also a poet, a mystic, a very rare combination. Mystics are there like Tilopa, great poets are there like the rishis of the Upanishads, great logicians are there like Aristotle, but you cannot find a Patanjali. He is such a combination that since him, there's been no one who can be compared to him. It is very easy to be a poet because you are out of one piece. It is very easy to be a logician. You are made of one piece. It is almost impossible to be a Patanjali because you comprehend so many opposites, and in such beautiful harmony, he combines them all. That's why he's become the alpha and omega of the whole tradition of yoga. In fact, it was not he who invented yoga. Yoga is far more ancient, has been there for centuries before Patanjali. He is not the discoverer, but he almost became the discoverer and founder just because of this rare combination of his personality. Jumping ahead, because he's a little happy about this. Since Patanjali, many have again walked and many have reached new corners of the world of yoga, but Patanjali towers like an Everest. It seems almost impossible anybody will ever be able to tower higher than Patanjali, almost impossible. This rare combination is impossible. To be a logician, to be a poet, to be a mystic, and not of ordinary talent, it is possible. You can be a logician, a great logician, an ordinary poet. You can be a great poet and an ordinary logician, third rate. That's possible. Patanjali is a genius logician, a genius poet, and a genius mystic. Aristotle, Kalidas, and Tilopa all rolled in one, hence the appeal. I thought you needed to hear that. Now we will go back to Swami Satyananda, who's going to save us from Maharshi Ved Vyasa's bhashya on Sutra 45. So, Swami Satyananda says the stages of samadhi in respect to subtle objects extend up to Prakriti. This is the simple translation. The field of experience of Ananda and Asmita Samadhi, that is the last two stages, extends, which is what? Bliss and awareness, extends up to Alinga. This is their field of operation of awareness and bliss, Samadhi, Asmita and Ananda. Alinga is what? Alinga is the unmanifest Prakriti, the what is called the indissoluble matter. Alinga means the last state in which the three gunas are equally and completely mixed with each other. There are 4 stages of the gunas, and the last one is called Alinga. It is without a mark or any characteristic which differentiates it. The first stage of the gunas is a particular stage called specific. The second stage is archetype or non-specific. The third one is with mark, and the fourth one is without mark. After meditation in Savitarka, Nirvitarka, and Asampragnata, Savichara, Nirvichara, and Ansampragnata, Ananda, Asampragnata, and Asmita, Ansampragnata, Nirbija Samadhi starts. After meditation, I'm just repeating this. After meditation in Savitarka, Nirvitarka, and Asampragnata, Savichara, Nirvichara, Asampragnata, Ananda, Asampragnata, and Asmita, Asampragnata, Nirbija Samadhi starts. So, when we are still in these 6 stages, we're still in Bija Samadhi. Okay? Now we're starting Nirbija. So, up to this point, we have been discussing Samadhi with seed. Sometimes it's a specific seed, a basis such as Rama, Krishna, Shiva. Further you go, the archetype is present, which is universal. Beyond that, there's a certain mark. A symbol might come to you, perhaps in the form of Christ, a cross, Shiva, Om. But that will be different from what you have already seen. It is merely with mark. In the 4th stage, there is no mark. You cannot say where the consciousness is. There is first awareness. Therefore, Alinga is the 4th stage of the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. In the first stage, there's a combination of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. In the second stage, Sattva grows, Rajas and Tamas become subservient. Third stage, Sattva alone remains. Fourth stage, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are in equilibrium. When the 3 gunas are in equilibrium, then the Alinga state is reached. Okay. Swami Vivekananda also keeps it quite simple. He says the finer objects end with pradhana. The gross objects are only the elements. Everything is manufactured out of them. Fine objects begin with the tanmatras or the fine particles. The organs, mind, egoism, mind stuff is the cause of all manifestation. The equilibrium state of sattva, rajas, and tamas materials called pradhana, or the chief, prakriti, nature, avyakta, unmanifest are all included within the category of fine objects. The Purusha alone is accepted from this definition. BKS Iyengar says the subtlest level of nature Prakriti is consciousness. When consciousness dissolves in nature, it loses all marks and becomes pure. So by exploring the subtle particles of nature, the consciousness reaches its goal. It is a state of complete cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. That is the subtle, infinitesimal intelligence, that is Mahat of nature, that is Prakriti. So he explains the relationship between Prakriti and Pradhana. Prakriti is the original or natural form of anything. Nature, Alinga, unmanifested form. Pradhana is primary of original matter, the first evolved or source of the material world, that which is placed or was set before. These are all subject to change, whereas Purusha is changeless. So, Prakriti is the original, Pradhana is the Alinga, unmanifested form. Why is Purusha not affected by the subtlety of Prakriti? Is because these are subject to change. Purusha is not subject to change. Osho, he says the province of Samadhi that is connected with these fine objects extends up to the formless stage of the subtle energies. This is the 8th picture. The province of samadhi that is connected with these finer objects becomes finer and finer. Moment comes when the form disappears and it becomes formless. It extends up to the subtle, formless stage of subtle energies. And he says these energies are so subtle that you cannot create form out of them. And of course, then he waxes eloquent on Patanjali. Barbara Stoller-Miller says the subtlety of objects results in their being free of defining marks. So in a way, she sort of mingled her analysis with the previous two sutras itself, where she says the elements of the subtle sphere include ego, intelligence, mind, and organs of sound, touch, shape, taste, and smell. And each of the gross elements is associated with a sense organ. So air is related to sound and the ear, fire to sight and the eye. The difference between subtle and gross elements is that the subtle elements are non-specific and universal, whereas gross elements are specific and particular. So intuitive cognition, that is nirvichara, derives from the realization that the subjective world of spirit erroneously identifies itself with the characteristics of material nature. This realization is super-rational, since the rational faculties of intelligence, that is buddhi, manas, belong to material nature. So in essence, what she's saying is that just basically once it goes into the realm of the subtle, it is free of all marks. If you remember, we began the set of 4 to 5 sutras by understanding cognition, the cognizer, the process of cognizing, and the relationship between word, form, and meaning. And now at the other end of the samadhi, you reach a point where these all just basically dissolve and disappear, and you're in a state of complete formless alinga prakriti. Okay, so this is Sutra number 45. Thank you for listening. Do like, share, subscribe. Come back tomorrow for Sutra number 46. A reminder that we're almost at the end of the sadhana pada. So if you can, send questions. I'm planning to do a summary episode. And if you have any questions, I'd like to be able to resolve them. And also do let me know how you're doing with all of this. Thank you. See you tomorrow.